Welcome back to Project Stardew, Tinyhouse build. I came back today with these 3D printed hinges since the free door I got from last time didn't fit any hinges I could find at the store. I used that etching of the screw holes I took from last episode and made these perfectly matching hinges, and we're going to see how well these actually work. It's going to be really interesting to see how well a load-bearing 3D print will fare in this situation. Now I'm just testing that the 3D printed hinges actually aren't going to break immediately, and so just to test, I mounted it to the stud without the door jamb or anything. And I was actually really impressed by how they didn't even flex and how smooth and silent they were. And I did mess up last time. I actually made the doorway in the wall a little bit too small, so I gotta expand that a bit. Not a big deal though. You can always fix your mistakes, and I'm sure I'll have plenty more. And I felt like the easiest way of doing this was to just completely remove the next board over. I only needed a few extra inches of space, but removing the whole thing and reattaching it later seemed like the easiest way of going about this. I also had to move the new stud I added from last week over another inch or two. A lot of people said I should add a header for the door, but it's really not necessary, and there's only 6 inches of space between the top of the door and the top of the plate, so Now it's time to make the door jamb. I got some 3/4 inch pine board, and I just want to double check that everything's going to fit and the jamb will fit into the door properly and all that. I'm using my brad nailer to keep it together for now while I'm testing it. And now that all that looks good, I'm going to be tracing the place where the hinges are going to go, and then I'm going to be chiseling those out. I didn't get any good footage of the chiseling, maybe for the best though, because they're not very pretty, but they'll work. Now I just put it back all together, and I'm just going to add the screws, and it should be ready to go up. So I got it all mounted and working, and the door was up and everything, but the problem is the door is broken. The mounting points for where you screw in the hinge to the door inside the door are just totally messed up. There's no fixing it. Trust me, I just had to get a new door. So I got this old wooden used one for 20 bucks from a local place. I like it. I think it's got some character. It looks pretty rough right now, but later on I plan on stripping the paint, repainting it, making it look nice, but that's a problem for future me. One of my buddies stopped over while I was working, and he was nice and held the door for me while I attached the hinges. I also added a new doorknob for the door, so now I got a key and I can lock it and everything. I'm moving up in the world. So I got a bunch of this scrap wood from cutting out where the door was going to go. So I'm going to remove all the nails and clean them all up, and then I'm going to cut strips out of these and use that to fill in the gaps and seal up everything around the door. And this worked out really well actually, for the most part, and it sealed it up really nice. And I cut these little tiny pieces to also fit in between the gaps of some different pieces of the wall like this here. And I just used my little brad nailer to nail them all into place. You know, they don't need to be super secure or anything, they just need to stay put. And the last little ugly bits around the outside of the door, that's all going to be covered up in trim later, so I'm not really worried about it. And now I'm cutting some long thin strips out of those extra boards I have, and I'm going to use these on the interior. There's this gap between the sole plate and the wall, and I know mice come up through here and they love running all around in there, so I gotta cover this up. And I can't use foam or anything because they'll just chew right through that, so I'm gonna cover it all up with wood. So I'm just shoving it in there, making sure I get it behind the studs too, so that there's no little crevices that could crawl up through, and then just nailing it all into place. And I did this all around the entire inside. I really don't want any mice making new homes inside my walls. And the last thing I did was I just put a quick bead of foam right along all the cracks of the new things I added. So there we go, the door is in place and works well. The outside is all patched up and looking good, and the walls are now officially ready for installation and drywall, so that's what I'll be doing next time. Thanks for sticking around.